be done in all things, and we give you all the glory and praise in your name. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call, Shelley.
Start. Dick Black.
Here.
Carla Bezer. Bill England. Keith Ostis.
He had to leave as emergency.
Joe Bird.
Honey.
Sean Crittenden.
Honey.
Mike Dobbins.
Here.
Wanda Hatfield. Honey. Rex Jordan.
Here.
Mike Shambaugh.
Here.
Mary Bakershaw.
Honey.
E.O. Smith.
Here.
Janice Taylor. Here. Victoria Vasquez. David Wassenstein.
Yes, honey.
Brian Warner.
Honey.
And Hayden Duncan.
Honey.
Yeah, form.
Thank you. Like to ask for approval of minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. On reports. Marshall Lane.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'm Jennifer Kirby, Family Assistance Director. I'm filling in for Marsha Lamb today. You have received our reports, but I also have a list of things here that I'd like to report to you. Some recent happenings within Human Services. We have moved our field offices in Salisaw and Locust Grove. Locust Grove has been moved to Pryor. Our first operational day will be in the new location for Pryor. For Pryor will be the 25th, which is next Monday.
What offices were those, Jennifer?
Salisaw moved to another location in Salisaw at 307 North Dogwood, and then Locust Grove is moving completely this week and will be operational on the 25th in Pryor. So Locust Grove, has moved to Pryor. We're hoping that traffic will be more in the Pryor area. We don't. A lot of people may elect, if they're somewhere between Tahlequah and Locust Grove, they may elect to come to Tahlequah a lot more often than going to Locust Grove. So we hope that some of our northern people will also go to Pryor. We do have a different phone number for that Pryor office, so the phone number is going to change. It's 825-1569. I've gotten a lot of questions about LIHEAP. We did make a payment in November to our elderly and disabled. We were able to make a supplemental payment. We're not always able to do that based on the budget, but this year we have been able to make a supplemental payment, and that was mailed out on the 8th, February the 8th. So I know as late as today, some companies were still posting that on their clients' accounts. So it does take about a week or so. So if anybody has a question, as we did send out letters, but if they have a question as to when they're going to get it, or if they were going to get it, please just send them to me and I'll be happy to look it up. Crisis, which is another LIHEAP payment for those that are not elderly or disabled. It's a one-time-a-year payment. If someone qualifies for Crisis, that will be open until the end of February. So that's if they meet a criteria, they have a cutoff notice, but they're not elderly or disabled. I believe it's up to $250. We still have all the other programs in place. It's just this $250 might be another source for families that are in crisis, basically, or have a cutoff notice. So we're going to keep that open until the end of the month and then kind of see where we're at budget-wise. The urban waiver for Bartlesville has been completed and will go to the regional office this week. So that's for food distribution. We will be submitting that to ask to serve the citizens within the Bartlesville city limits through food distribution. So we are very proud to announce that we had 3 staff within Elder Services under Family Assistance. They completed the Oklahoma DHS APS Academy Adult Protective Services. That's a 2-week commitment in Oklahoma City. Those 3 staff, it's a lot of work, and they go through the same exact training that the state APS workers do, and they really, I don't want to say like they really put their heads down and were committed to doing that because they wanted to bring that type of work here within Human Services. And one of the things that it helps them to determine is capacity, and that's a very important skill to have. So hopefully it's laying a foundation for our elder services, our elder protection services. So.
Okay, just a second. The letter for Bartlesville, I guess, is that in its initial stages, or do we have anything back from them yet? Or?
No, the government shutdown really did. I mean, we had no communication with our regional office during that time. They were not there. So so we're now submitting it now that everybody's back in pocket. And they're aware that we're going to submit it, but they don't have a decision for us yet or anything. It's just the initial application.
Okay, well, that'll help a whole bunch. Thank you.
Yeah.
Janice and then Michael.
The office in Pryor, is that at Cherokee Heights versus somewhere else?
It's right across from the courthouse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And is we've been doing the child support there in town. Are they combining or?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because I actually forgot to mention that child support, child care, and family assistance are all in one office in Pryor at that location,
Okay.
as well as in Salisaw. So we're working on combining all those staff together.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
Okay, and Mike?
You said, I guess, so we've never had an APS department in our DHS?
No. We really, we've not really had the foundation, because when you look at taking guardianship and things like that, but we,
So will they do things like that? Will they do like exploitation and things like that too?
yes, right now they're doing, it's mostly like on an education level, and then if they need to fill out, what did I see? A durable, like power of attorney or something along those lines. We can always offer suggestions on how to do that. It's right now it's a at a educational level and doing welfare checks. But anything that we find, we do make reports to the state.
So if it may be too early to answer this question, but where are you going to base your APS workers at?
Right now, they are based here in Tahlequah. We have community advocates in 5 of our outlying offices, I believe, and they do some work, although they're also doing work very similar to our advocates that are in the office. So they kind of do a little bit of that as well, but not fully like our 4 staff here in Tahlequah do.
All right, thank you.
We're building the foundation, hopefully, to expand that.
That would be a very good thing.
Yeah, we get a lot of calls for just that exploitation and just welfare checks. Yeah. So, I just had one other thing to mention on my list here. There's been a lot of questions about clothing vouchers. We actually got the contract approval last week to do the convenient cards. The convenient cards will allow citizens who receive this funding to go to any store of their choice, any clothing store. So, what it is I believe the Choctaw Nation and the Creek Nation and possibly Chickasaw already use this type of card. But what it does is it has a code. Every time, like if you go to Walmart, if you're on the grocery side and you're buying groceries, there's a code that goes through that flags that. And so the card has those codes in there for clothing. So there is that safeguard put in there. So,
Been fighting that for 6 years.
But, well, this wasn't an easy thing as far as the contract-wise goes because it's a company in Massachusetts, I believe. So some of the lingo, but contracts worked with us very well and got that done for us. So we will be releasing details in the coming months of what this process is going to look like, so. And that's all I have.
Good news. Kana?
Jennifer, I just wanted to publicly thank you guys. I've had lots of calls on propane, as you know, and
Yeah.
the crisis payments that went out, and you guys have been real quick and helpful and got things taken care of, so thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know. Yeah.
Mary Shaw?
Okay. Jennifer, I want to personally thank you with the situation I had last month. I know
Okay.
you went to some extraordinary measures,
Yeah.
I think, to help me on that. I have a question. Does your organization work with elder care?
A little bit, as far as if some of the people sometimes need home visits, like if they're filling out LIHEAP applications, if they have a concern and they want us to go out and do a home visit. But it's also my understanding they kind of have their own little social services, maybe unit there. So we just kind of fill in whenever they need us to step in or need extra support.
Okay, and then I want to ask you a question. On page 17 in your report, it's got elders in need, it's 2,865, and then senior case management. What does this mean to me?
Elders in need is 60 and over. That mean the income guidelines. Mostly those that are also LIHEAP clients. Payments go out 2 times a year to the vendor of their choice, whether they choose to use it on propane or electricity. We actually just had a deadline with our elders in need on the 15th. We send out the 60 and over elders a paper. They fill it out and say where they want it to go, give us an account number, and they send it back to us. So that's what those are, is payments, the number of elders that we serve through that.
Let's say senior case management 1,001. What's that?
Those are the number of elders that we make contact with throughout the year, whether it's they're needing a referral, we meet them at the nutrition sites and they need they're wanting to apply for elder in need. It's basically elder contacts, and we've made some kind of call or just contact with them.
Okay, and then last month, I think there was, I want to make sure I understand it correctly. Do we deliver meals to our homebound elders?
We do not deliver.
Thank you.
Yes,
We do not deliver.
we do not deliver. No, we didn't. Yeah, we do not have the staff, the capacity to home deliver meals.
Okay, I want to go back to elder services again on page 17. Senior nutrition, home delivered meals. What does that mean? 'Cause you just said you didn't, but here it says senior nutrition, home delivered meals, 11,491. I mean, it says home delivered, but you're saying we don't do it.
That is family or friend deliveries. They come in, or volunteers come in and pick up a meal and take it to the homebound elderly.
So I know this is on the website too.
Yes, and
I think we need to clarify on that website because it's very confusing to I mean, I get calls about this and I'm at large, you guys, so I'm getting your all's phone calls, just kind of FYI here. But they're having a misunderstanding because they say, well, it says here. And I can understand that confusion by the website. So if you all can clarify that family pickup or whatever, provider picked up meals, but it needs clarification on the website, and if you can pass that on, I would
will.
be really grateful.
I will take care of that for sure.
And, let's see, what is it? Thank you. That's
Yeah.
all I have. And I appreciated your help last
Yeah,
night.
thank you.
Sean Crittenden?
Yeah, Jennifer, on that adult protective services, if you have someone that has suspicions that someone might need to go check on an elder, if they may be not being treated good,
Right.
what's that process? Can you just go on someone calling you and say, check on this, or?
Most generally, if there is warranted details kind of that we're getting from maybe someone who has been in the home or from another department within the tribe, we also get those. If you yourself have been out there and made a home visit and said, I've got
As a
some concerns. Right.
Not necessarily nailing them down,
Right.
just.
Right.
You
We can call and just kind of gauge the situation. We would ask that any details about the situation would be foreclosed to us. Like, we don't want to send anybody out there in danger. We have called on the marshals sometimes to go with us, and not as a threatening thing, just as a safety thing. So, I mean, really, if there's a history, we do try to check that out too. Because a lot of the people that we do get referrals on are already in our system. So we're able to check that out too. So, I would just say, if you've had someone has reported that to you, have them to let us know, and we'll try to do some background checking. We're not just gonna go out there, knocking down doors and stuff. We'll do some background work.
And let's see. What was that? All right. Oh, the clothing voucher. Now, the plan's not to go just totally online, is it?
Probably not. It's still a little early for me to wrap my mind around how it's going to look different this year, but I think a lot of it's going to also depend on previous applicants, so that they just do updates and not full applications. A lot like we do our LIHEAP and our Elders in Need, they do updates where they might send in documents or something, or not LIHEAP, but EIN. They send in updates. So we're going to try to make it look like that. That's not totally online, but my hope is that it will cut down on some of those individual sites, having to do so many of those. We're always going to have new people. But again, it's still a little early to tell. I have a lot of ideas, but I'd hate to just throw those out there because it's still too early to see how it's going to look. But I will say that it's probably not just going to be a month-long program. It's probably going to be extended longer.
I'm really happy about the choices that they'll have. And
Yeah.
I was also, you may have, I think I included you on an email, but can you send back, I've got some ladies at the CDC, and they're good ladies, and known some of them a long time, and but they're still unclear on the incentive thing and they're hearing that some got them and some didn't, and just like I said, just there's still some miscommunication there, and appreciate you looking at that. And also, if you could send up to the top and just ask how the advocate situation at Stillwell's looking. I thought I understood that last month that most places, if not all, had two. But if that's not the case, I still, I mean, there's a need, and like I said before, that I've heard that hey, they look at the numbers, but I'm sure the ones that are not seen, and maybe no one's in today, or we got a protected time, or we've got, I'm sure those people that don't get to see anybody, I'm sure that's not figuring into the numbers.
Right.
Or we both wouldn't get all those calls. But please check on that, and budget's coming up, and I'd asked before about a salary
Right.
of an advocate, and that may be overstepping my bounds, but they do want me to vote yes on budgets.
Right.
And so that's where I kind of, my big old nose gets into things, and because that's a lot of my dealings is that human service department, where the ladies work as hard as they can, but they're just simply understaffed there. But thank you for passing that.
I will.
Passing that on, Jim, and I appreciate you, boy. You're quick on that email and phone. I appreciate you.
Well, I wanted to make sure that, I was left in charge for Marcia this week, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing what she expected, so.
Well, I mean, I'm not talking about this week. I mean, in the past, you're quick on that stuff, so I thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Brian?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say, say thank you. I know I burn you up a lot with a lot of emails, and Marcia and the whole team of you and everybody in the trenches. I know everybody here is very appreciative
Thank you.
of what you guys do. I was thinking about the to-go meals. I think there's probably some areas that, I don't know if everybody at the nutrition centers know that some of those meals can be taken out of there, because I hear a lot of different things. If you could check with some of those folks, because I've got a couple of new 501c3 organizations, particularly one that's a Rural Community Initiative Foundation, and they're looking for different things to do. And we've got a meeting coming up with them, and some of the things that some of those that I've talked about are, can we go back and start getting meals and taking,
Right.
to people? And I think that's a really good way. And I've got some elders that are in town, Sallisaw, that are looking for places to volunteer, and a lot of them mention that, and it'd be a good way, because I know if one person right now wants to take on that initiative of moving a lot of meals around, week 3, week 4, week 5, when do they hit a wall? Because I
Right.
know y'all hit a wall a lot sitting in those offices doing all these different things, and you
Yeah.
need that refresher.
Yes.
That's what the Lord's word says, that, come to him and he will replenish you. So I want to plug in as many volunteers, but I want to make sure we've got all the communication lines open,
Yes.
especially with the people that are cooking the food,
Yeah.
knowing what needs to go out. So if you could just, get with me or
Yeah.
at some time, and we'll talk about it and see. Because I know if a lot of meals start going out and we got people coming to the centers, because our elders every day,
Yeah.
they get a day older, and health, goes up and down.
Yeah.
Our numbers may go down, but we may end up, sending out a lot of meals to folks and stuff. And I know in my areas, particularly Marble City, Flute Springs, Henderson, Nycut, Belfont, Short, Long, and all those areas are really important. So, okay.
Well, and some of that, has to do with our funding and what it says in our funding. But I also think that, definitely regular reiterating with our cooks every time we have a training, kind of what that means, what this is supposed to mean. We are going to try to strengthen our relationships with those community organizations that house those nutrition sites. We need to be more present there at those meetings, because we're still a small part of that by having those nutrition sites there in their building. So that's one of our initiatives that we're going to be working on, is strengthening that relationship.
I know it's tough to keep cooks, and then a lot of them, they I know at our house, whoever's doing the cooking, there comes a point where you hit a wall too. You
Yeah.
don't need anybody in the kitchen telling you how to do stuff. So
A lot of people
and
would
I don't
agree
want
with you
them
on
to
that.
feel- Some of them feel like they get exploited as well. If
Yeah.
food going out, not necessarily going where it needs to. And I know there's that issue, but if we get good, faithful background check volunteers, I'm big on background checks.
Yeah.
Who are we sending out there? So anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. I saw a hand go up over here. Yes, ma'am. Wanda.
I think I've asked this question or mentioned this before. We have vacancies, okay? I see, let's see, I'm gonna, just bear with me, 34 vacancies. And I look at your program, you just have 1, and then your other program, your interim director, you have 8. Okay, and then I look at your programs and let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're trying to do all this, okay? You do have 111 employees, it says, and 38 volunteers. Okay, that's good. In the youth services and special projects, you have 16 employees, 1 vacancy. And those are youth programs, and you have 1, 2, 4 programs there. Okay, what can we do to help you get on? I know the process. When we hire at Cherokee Nation, the process is, Mr. Morton has explained it to us. It's not just, simple, you apply for a job, and, it's a process. But, and then we have 22 vacancies in the child care and child development. Do we just not have people that are not qualified for these jobs? Or, I know the process. I understand all that. But to me, I don't know exactly what you do, but you do lots of things in human services. And if there's one department that needs to be fully staffed,
Yeah.
it should be human services, because that's probably, I mean,
Yeah.
I know you get lots of calls, I get calls. But what can we do to help you? I mean, I mean, I know you probably don't hire, I mean, I know it goes through Mr. Morton, HR,
Right.
but that's, to me, that just, especially with the child care and child about 22, I mean, just think what we could do if we had 22, and I know the process is long, but what's just a real simple, I mean, I know there isn't a solution, but I think you have lots to do. I mean, lots of programs, and,
I wish Tricia was here, because she could tell you a little bit more detail about childcare, like all those vacancies and kind of what some of the common trends are of why people leave. Because they do, my understanding is those workers have to go through a course, and they can do that through career services. So I don't have a magical answer on say like the youth shelter. That's the one that I deal with every day, directly under me, and that's hard work. I mean, it's definitely dealing with foster kids who have been in and out of the system, kids who have been hurt. I don't know how you
do you
keep
okay.
someone to
Okay, but
I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah.
You tell do our directors or in these programs, do they go to Marcia and say, hey, Marcia, I'm in this department, I'm 2 employees short, or do we just let it go and and we release people, or they quit, whatever the reason for the job, people are leaving their jobs, or do we just kind of sit and go, oh, well, there's a vacancy, okay, now I'm taking care of 20 kids or 20 adults or whatever instead of 10. I used to take care of 10.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's an extra load. And then are people just don't go to the supervisor and say, hey, can you please, or can we step up and get, maybe meet with Mr. Morton and say, hey, I just feel like there are people out there. Now, I know there are situations where, maybe you need to have a degree in a certain area, or, but are there, I mean, I don't get that, because it's just, I mean, to me, and yes, people quit, people get released, so on and so forth, but I just don't think, are those people just going to I just wish they'd go to their supervisor and say, hey, I'm overloaded, I'm overworked, or are we afraid to do that? I don't know. I mean, I haven't been in that situation, so I don't know. But I mean, of course, and you all, I appreciate, your willingness to, you all do a great job.
I mean, I think there's a variety of reasons, from pay to I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but we have a lot of people that work for us in human services, and probably across the tribe, that are a lot of caregivers, and we have people that leave because they're having to care for their parents or someone in their family, and that takes precedent over having a job, and they just have to make ends meet. I mean, we have a lot of that. We also have a lot of illness, a lot of people that are coming down with illnesses, I mean, and things like that. And so I'm not saying that that's like the top reasons, but we just have a lot of people that are doing a lot of things, I think, and a lot. And sometimes, working overnights does not work, because I know that's a lot of our thing at the shelters. We have overnight shifts, and that's not ideal to people who are trying to raise a family. So,
Right.
But I mean, it's
I'm not
probably
trying to put you on the spot.
I mean, it's probably a variety of answers. Yeah. And maybe we can get something together and just kind of look at that, analyze that.
And there are some programs where people are on call, on weekends. I mean, the social programs. And yes, sometimes you choose that job. You choose to do, but to be on call, and then hopefully we're compensating those people.
Yeah. We do have shift differentials and things like that we offer.
But I guess, I'm just saying, like, I was just looking at your programs particularly, and yes, you have 111, but my goodness, look at the programs you have. I mean, I commend you, for, but I wish we could do something about,
Childcare, is that kind of is that the one of the big?
That's the highest. Okay. Well, for all of our programs.
Yeah, well, absolutely, but yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm not being critical. I'm just
No,
like,
I
I'm just
understand.
like, if there's any way we can help or move the process or, that would, if we, that's it. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, John?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. Oh, Community Services, Martha Ketcher.
CO. Just to highlight some of the accomplishments that's in this report period, I'd like to just to shine a light on the Office of Environmental Health and Engineering, Billy Hicks and his staff. They've made significant progress toward the completion of water line projects like at Delaware, Kenwood, and Muskogee. We've did experience some slowdown with due to the government shutdown with the Delaware Southern Delaware project, but that's been since resolved it was due to lack of payments, but that's been resolved. We are we're beginning the work on the water loss projects at Briggs and Oaks, and we're scheduled to begin construction on the Moody project on 510 Road water line. Our future work includes working on a bid package with the Cherokee County Rural Water Districts, and we're working with rural water districts in Concord, Cherokee, and Delaware for assistance there. We've included images in our report this month of some of our projects. We hope you find that helpful. On the SDS, consultation and comments that went forward earlier in FY18, I understand those comments are going before the board, the Facilities Appropriations Advisory Board, the FAB. Dr. Grimm still serves on that board representing Oklahoma, so I think that our representation will still go forward with the FAB. And we've conducted 7 youth and 8 adult activities across 9 of the communities this past month. And we have some other additional good news in Department of Transportation, but I don't want to steal Michael's thunder. He'll be reporting on that shortly. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
What are some of the activities, like, you have dates and like youth activities? I mean, you just go to the community, and I think you've probably explained before, or probably.
They do different crafts.
Just, okay.
In youth development, it's about community engagement, developing the youth to be engaged and keeping them engaged with our traditions, our activities that involve beading, or the craftsmanship that you received at Christmas, those little board things. They do a lot of things with that. The adults usually mirror the same kind of projects, but it's about community engagement, developing our youth. And then our staff have been really pushing continuing education with our staff. This month they'll be participating in a social emotional skill building skills for our staff that work with our youth, as well as grant writing courses that the staff are taking this coming month.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Good report, Martha.
Thank you.
Housing with Gary Cooper.
Good afternoon. I think I can probably just leave it at that. I think I've answered several emails from y'all. Just send back in the audience, or at least started sending them to folks to find out some answers for you. A couple of things that I want to mention is I mentioned before that our regional HUD administrator, Wayne Sims, was retiring. He has retired. We do have an acting administrator in the Oklahoma City office that is a good Cherokee citizen by the name of David Sutherland. I think most of you probably know David. David was the administrator down in the Southwest region, and he is currently at Oklahoma City in the acting capacity right now. So we're glad to have him up there.
So he said he's gonna be the acting out of Oklahoma City.
He will be the acting administrator for the Southern Plains Office of Native American Programs, which is Oklahoma City. And then I'm guessing that at some point in the very, very near future, I talked to the Deputy Assistant Secretary last week at NCAI, and she expects that probably sometime soon they'll be able to advertise that position and we'll be able to get someone permanent. So yeah, as of right now, he is the acting, and we're glad for that. Wayne was there for 20, almost 30 years, and he actually came from the Choctaw Nation Housing Authority. And so it's always good to have a housing person in one of those positions, at least in the office, because they've been on that side of it. As you know, probably the most exciting thing, and it's kind of crazy that we have to talk about that, is the government's open. That is good news. We're working through and trying to get some things done. We talked, I think back in, there was the ICDBG grant that went in. That, of course, the due date was during the government shutdown. There was some question on whether they would extend that deadline or not after talking to HUD last week, as they're looking at probably extending that for somewhere up to 30 days. And there's some reasons for that. There's a lot of folks who could not get some of the paperwork they needed to submit with their grant application because the government offices that handled those were closed. So it looks like that they will probably extend that out. Along with the appropriations bill that was signed into law last Friday is money again in there for Indian housing. We're looking at a similar amount to what we got in 2018 for the NAHASTA programs, which is $655 million overall, and that is good. That's the same amount Congress authorized last year, and it is more. It's about $55 million, a little over $50 million more than what the president requested, so we are glad for that. Our portion is usually around $30 million, and there is also the additional $100 million for competitive grants that's in there. So I'm hoping that maybe sometime in the very near future, like maybe this spring, the NOFA will come out for the competitive grant money. So right now, there is $200 million available for competitive grants. That is $100 million for 18 funding and $100 million for 19 funding. I would expect originally in 18, the NOFA hadn't come out, so we don't know all the details, but we were looking at probably somewhere around $2 to $5 million cap on those. So whatever the cap is, however much it is, we're going to apply for the maximum amount and see what we can do and try to put a project together that will get the maximum number of points that we can get for that. The other good news is that the 19 appropriations also includes another $65 million for ICDBG. So in addition to the ICDBG for 18 that just closed, now they'll be able to open one up hopefully this spring for the 19 ICDBG. We'll finally figure out what the appropriations, the actual appropriation dollar amounts and stuff are in the next 120 days. It takes about 120 days once the appropriations bill is passed to get it out through OMB, Treasury, and everything else, and actually for it to flow down, because they'll have to run the formula whenever those come out. So that's kind of where we're at. I think I've followed up with several of y'all that I've been working on some stuff for, had some questions, and several of y'all sent me some more information, so I'm trying to find out some information on those for you. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those.
Gary, I'm asking
Yes, sir.
for Lenny. Me and old Canaan went up there one time, and he's the one waiting on a replacement home. Now, what you just was saying is the money, did it happen what we were waiting on, just the approval of it?
The approval part, so what we will,
Happen?
well, the appropriations, the appropriations was signed into law. So now we're just waiting to see what our actual dollar amounts will be.
Now, will that speed up the replacement home?
Yeah.
Because the government shut down. Remember we spoke.
It will
that
once.
It was kind of slowing it up, and we were waiting on.
Yeah, so we don't have any 2019 money yet.
Okay.
2019 fiscal year that started October 1, the
We
money.
don't have that money now.
No,
What I
for
understood is
120
we didn't have to have that in our pocket just
No.
for it to be approved.
Well, we'll need to know what the amount is. So somewhere in the next several days, once they are able to run the formulas for that and we know what our portion is, then we'll have a pretty good idea.
If things go well, 120 days. we'll have an
I'm
idea.
thinking that we will probably start replacement homes somewhere, probably spring, somewhere around March or April. For the replacement homes that we would do for 2019.
March or April. Hey, that's better than that other thing we heard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Gary.
Yes.
I was driving around Stillwell yesterday from Fairfield, and there were some Indian homes back there, but there was a road back behind that housing addition that just went to two dead ends on both sides. I was wanting to know, what was the vision or the purpose of that?
That wasn't me. I think you're talking about down at Fairfield and over on the right-hand side.
Highway back there that
Yeah,
leads
yes,
nowhere.
Yeah. the super-
I wasn't involved in that. That was community services years ago. I couldn't tell you what the vision was, and if you can figure it out, more power to you.
That's your district, isn't it?
Sean's.
What-
But yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
That was done
the
with,
housing addition, man, you can get lost. There's
It's a nice highway.
There's not a,
I mean, it's nice.
yeah.
Who built the highway? We did.
Yeah, I think it was built with stimulus funds back in '08, sometime around there. That
They
was,
was gonna maybe put a housing addition, or they had.
well, I mean, that's what the plan, I mean, they had planned on doing like a housing addition, but they were based on like 5-10 acre tracts. And we have problems with folks taking care of 1 acre right now. But it was based on that, and then you also had the added problem with,
All those homes back
they didn't
there-
run utilities back there to all the sites and all those other things.
What's all those homes, are those self-help homes?
There's some self-help homes there, there's some new homes there. It just kind of depends. We have used them from time to time whenever something's come up, either a self-help or, there's some self-help homes on back down there. There's some new construction right there on the corner. There's just kind of a combination.
Gotcha. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Roads and Transportation, Michael Lynn.
Here's the guy with the answer steps.
Good afternoon. You have a copy of our report, but I do a few things I want to highlight. We learned late last week something that we're real excited about in the department. We received word from the Federal Transit Administration that we had received an award for a grant that we had applied for replacement vehicles or what we call capital. So we received an award for $281,000, and we will be purchasing 5 new vehicles, transit vehicles for that with those funds. 3 of the vans will be replacing existing vans that we have that are just outdated or fully depreciated or worn out. Those will be for the Saline and Catoosa route, Sallisaw to Tahlequah route, and the Tahlequah to Catoosa route. The other 2 vehicles will be used to expand the demand response services that we offer in the Tahlequah and Pryor areas. So looking forward to getting those vehicles on order. We hope to have those in by probably fall of 2019. Believe it or not, it takes a while to get those things built and in, but we'll work as hard as we can to get those in and in service. Northeast Fort Gibson project runs between Cherokee and Muskogee counties. The contractor is moving equipment on site tomorrow, the 19th, and we'll begin. There's a large bridge in a section that is an unopened section now called Rocky Top. They'll be working primarily in that area to start with to get the bridge built to start going, and then they'll focus on the roads leading up to that. Ross Street here in Tahlequah leading down to the new health clinic. Construction's underway. They're doing earthwork and drainage culvert installation. A lot of utilities moving. We're moving utilities, electric lines on White Oak Road in Craig County. Chimney Rock Road, also moving some electric in Mays County there. And then Dwight Mission Road in Sequoia County, the north of I-40, We're started a tree clearing process there to get ready for utility relocation to begin. I wanted to go ahead and get those trees cleared early because of a bat issue, an endangered bat issue. So we're getting those out of the way so we can move into the utility phase. Mr. Chair, I would like to address the question that came up from Councilor Walkenstick, if we could. He did mention that to me, and I thought you were referring to another road. The Fairfield Housing Addition was built, and Gary was correct, it was built around the 2008 era with stimulus funds. I think those were supposed to be 1 to 5 acre tracts, I'm not sure. We were charged with building the road. The design was given to us, but we were charged with building it. We built that and the Redbird Smith project at the same time over there off of Moonshine Road. So I thought you were referring to another road when I responded to you.
It's a nice highway out in the middle of nowhere.
It's an extremely nice road in the middle of nowhere that has, I don't know if there's I mean, the idea was to build houses back there, and I didn't have anything to do with that, so I don't really know what the future plans are for it, but it is a very nice facility out there in Fairfield.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Lynn, it's come to my mind, what are you doing with the old vehicles?
Those will go back out for auction. We'll have to surplus those and auction them off.
How would I, before that does that may be a deal, we've been talking about a route for the immersion school.
Mm-hmm.
Who do I need to talk to about keeping that in mind before they get auctioned off? Who would I need to talk to?
I need to check on it, but what I believe is correct is if they were purchased with FTA, Federal Transit Administration dollars to begin with, they have to be auctioned. Now, anybody can bid on them, that is, but if you're wanting to try to keep them back and donate them to another organization or another department, I'd have to check into that. Let me find out.
Thank you, Taryn. That was a great idea. She caught that, and I was going to take credit for it, but
Let me find out.
So houses were to be built back there?
Yes.
On that road?
Yes, that was the intention,
Wow,
yes.
that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good road back there now. I've known about that road a long time ago. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Barrett Baker Shaw.
Yes. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Michael, I want to ask you a question about the transit system. I think we have a lot of people who are unaware that we have a transit system that will transport people to their medical visits. And this that you have put in our report, this is what you all did a couple of months ago, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Will you all actually go to someone's home and pick them up and take them to that medical facility, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
If it's booked ahead of time, am I correct on that?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then you will pick them up and take them back home.
Yes.
What does that cost?
50 cents each way, $1 round
50
trip.
cents each way. Well, I'm hoping that by asking this question, it puts it out there, because I received 2 phone calls just last month regarding this, and I appreciate you sharing it. Thank you.
Yes, we ask that they give a minimum 72 hours notice if they can.
72-hour notice.
And again, all of those services are based on driver and vehicle availability. That's the reason we ask for the advance notice. They'll try to accommodate as much as they can when they have the driver and vehicles. But yes,
I think that's awesome. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Anyone else?
Are those prices pretty competitive with other transportation?
Extremely competitive. Yes.
Because there's
Probably.
several here in town's reason I asked.
Yeah, and the ones here in town is that we contract with them to provide these services,
Sure.
CATs and Pelivan and
Yes.
things of those nature. But yeah, I believe it's cheaper than any fare that they would pay normally to those organizations.
It's a great program.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you all.
Commerce, Hannah Knight.
You have a copy of my report. I just wanted to point out we're in the middle of tax season, and although you hear in the news that a lot of tax returns are down, we're asking people to bring last year's tax returns in with them so we can kind of compare them, and they're not really down, not for the market that we're serving, which is low income. So that's good news.
That's good.
Otherwise, we're just working, one of the things our trainer is working on is she's created some financial empowerment classes to teach to Cherokee Nation employees. There's a lot of productivity that's lost every year in companies because employees are taking care or concerned about and stressed about personal financial matters. So that's one area that we're looking at trying to work on. And then I just want to point out, and I do it every once in a while, but since we started the self-sufficiency program in 2007, over 900 families that could not get a mortgage have been able to get a mortgage and buy a house. And a lot of those families stay in financial counseling and the self-sufficiency counseling for 2 years. So they work really hard in order to get themselves in those positions, and I just think it's great. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
David?
And I think last month we talked about the government shutdown and how the tribe could help out the government employees. And we discovered that it was an ethics violation on behalf of the IHS if the tribe helped out.
To do more than what we would
Yeah.
normally do, yes.
So the question is how did the other tribes get by with that? Because there's other tribes that was helping out their citizens that were government employees.
We could help out our citizens that were government employees that with our tribal credit program the way it was. And we helped several. What we couldn't do was create a special program for them or give them zero interest loans that were considered a gift. And according to the AG's office, it was it would have been those employees that would have faced ramifications from their ethics violation, not the tribe itself, but we were trying to protect them. So
what was the tribal credit policy?
and the tribal credit policy is we make loans. We don't have a minimum or a maximum. We depending on risk, we determines what kind of collateral it is that we need and how much they can borrow. And then the interest rate is it's 7% above prime lending rate, and so at that time it was about 12.5%, which is fairly decent for an unsecured loan.
Yeah. Well, what I understood was like the other tribes were giving out gas cards, and food cards, gifts, and even helping out with their mortgages. And so, I was wondering what their attorney general was thinking.
I'm not sure. And I know that my understanding is they were working mostly with IHS, and that the conflict came in that we would be giving something to someone that worked for us, that was contracting with us. But you would have to talk with Chrissy Nemo about that. She's the one that handled that.
Yeah. I didn't think to ask it, because after you guys told me that, I went home and I was like, well, how do those other tribes get by with it? You know? And so,
Right. I was involved just in the loan piece of it.
we got to figure out a better way on that. But anyways, thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. I've got Mary Shaw.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
I have a question. You were saying that you've done a lot of our employee counseling, financial counseling, correct?
We do some financial counseling for the employees. We're putting together a new training program, yes.
Very good. Can you please tell me or share with me approximately how many of our employees are considered low income?
I do not know the answer to that question. That would be an HR question.
That's an HR question. Thank you.
Well, and they probably couldn't even answer you anyway because of the size of the family. They don't always know the size of the family, and that's what determines low income.
Is there any other way that you could think about getting that than through HR?
For employees themselves, I'm not aware of any other way. I can give it a little thought, but I
Give us
don't
some
know.
thought. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kanan?
And I was just going to add to, you're talking about financial counseling. I've talked with a lot of folks that's in the MAP program, and of course they're thankful for their home, but the vast majority that I speak with, they're so thankful for the financial counseling aspect because it completely changes the way they think about everything. And it's just such a great program. So
Thank you.
I wanted to give you kudos for that.
The staff does a great job, and we still are at no foreclosures on people that go through long-term self-sufficiency counseling. It does change their spending and saving habits, so.
It's pretty good.
Thank you. Junior?
Are there requests for the free tax preference? Is it up, request?
The requests are about normal. We're booked through March now, so and we do a lot of walk-in clinics, but it's about where it usually is at this time of the year.
Or it's about the third week of April for some people or something like that?
Right. We prepare them right up to the end of tax season, so.
It's a good program, what he was talking about today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Indian Child Welfare. Nikki?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
One exciting thing I wanted to share is that in Salisaw this week, or I guess last week, we rolled out the Care Portal. And Care Portal is now available in 10 of the 14 counties. To kind of refresh your memory, what Care Portal is, that basically allows churches to assist foster care agencies, mainly DHS and of course Indian Child Welfare, with the needs of families to either keep them together or to put them back together. So if a single mother was a victim of domestic violence, she's finally got her own home and she can begin to get her own children. Care Portal can fill those needs. Maybe they need a set of bunk beds, a new microwave, etc. Or grandparents decide to take the children in, but they don't have the things that they need to take those grandkids in, so that we don't have to put them in foster care. The churches will help fill those needs. The kids' needs are met, and again, families get to stay together. So it's an awesome approach to foster care, where you open up and you give some of the details out to a church, and then the church sends it out to all their members. And if they happen to have that in their garage, or they have extra money within their church, they're able to put that towards that. So that was something that Cherokee Nation worked really hard to partner with a couple of years ago with a man named Chris Campbell with the 111 Project. And through our partnership and collaboration, he promised he would focus on Indian country, and he has fulfilled that promise, and 10 of our 14 counties have that. So just something to kind of brag about. We're excited that we have. Our kids are being taken care of better, and that's all we can hope for every day. That's basically all the big news that I have. I've received my report, so if you have any additional questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Mary?
Nikki, I think you always do an amazing job, and I'm always excited to hear your report. I had a constituent call. They have actually adopted 3 children through the Cherokee Nation, but they had one suggestion, and that was that the waiting was just mind-boggling, and without any communication, and they didn't know what the status was at any time on waiting. And so the suggestion was, if you all could just like call and tell them that, you know, every 6 months to a year or something, to let them know that they're still, you know, that you all realize they're still waiting, and you're still waiting as well with them.
And just so I can fully understand your concern, so I can address it, you're talking about they signed up to be an adoptive home with our foster care program, and it took several months, if not a year, before they were called.
So
Yeah.
they totally got 3 children, but what after the experience, it was just a suggestion that if they could receive some type of communication, that that you all haven't forgotten them.
Sure,
You
absolutely.
all realize, because they said it's a long time, maybe a year or longer even, that before anyone communicated with them, that they have not forgotten that they're still waiting for a child.
Gotcha. My understanding is that we have to do a recertification with every family that we have within our department every year, because background checks and fingerprints, people could commit a crime within that year and things of that nature. And so it's my understanding that they contact them each once a year, but maybe somebody slipped through the cracks, or even more often than that.
These were actually people who took foster children and then adopted. I think it was 1 or 2 of them, but they finally got a baby. But for those, what they were saying is that there was no communication in that wait period. And if somebody would just call and say, hey, we understand you're still waiting, and we're here waiting with you, and we haven't forgotten you.
Sure, I'll look into that.
Thank you.
You bet.
And Kanan?
Nikki, I'm glad you brought up Care Portal. I wanted to ask, or maybe make a suggestion.
Sure.
So, the little church I go to, we participate in Care Portal, and get text messages all the time from members that want to be involved in it.
Sure.
And so you don't ever hear anything back from the ones that, you know, maybe you're not helping with. But for a little old church like the one I go to, I think it would be neat if at the end of the year you could come back and say, hey, Rocky Mount Bible Church was able to help
Sure.
this many kids with these problems, because it may boost participation, and it would definitely boost morale among the participation.
So what I hear you saying is a summary of the needs met by each church within each county, and send that out to all of them, almost to encourage,
Yeah.
look how well that church did. Hey, our church was a little behind on the numbers. Let's see if we can't do better next year or something. You bet. I'll look into that.
Plus, it's great to have John as a visitor in your church anyway, so.
Sure. He gets excited.
Yeah.
Good.
Janice?
I'm wondering if this pie chart on the type, certification and placement, if it has something to do with the way a pie chart is drawn, but it shows 0 emergency and respite homes. Is that correct?
You know, looking at that I don't think is accurate. We usually have 1 to 2%, but that is something that we have. Maybe they're not only respite. You know what I'm saying? So I'll go back and check with my staff. What that means is they only want to help homes for 5 days.
Yep.
So some of them will say, I love to cuddle babies. If I can just do it for 5 days while you try to find a family, I'd like to do it for that short period of time. I know I'm working with one group that somebody sent me, one of you, but they want to be that type of home. They're an older couple. So let me look into that. That surprises me if we have 0.
Yeah.
But I will say I probably just have 3 to 4 total. But that should still calculate to 1 to 2%.
I'm just thinking, if you get a call, you got to pick up a baby at the hospital, and you got to get it now. You have to find a place for it. And if we truly have 0, we need to be recruiting in that area, because
Right.
it's a very critical service,
Yeah.
I guess you could say.
And I will tell you, just to make you guys feel good about that situation, when we pick up kids, oftentimes it's in the middle of the night. And the one thing that Cherokee Nation, I'm proud to report to you, is that we have a shelter, and it's basically a 1-bedroom apartment. And we take those kids with us, with the worker, and we stay the night with them with 2 or 3 workers. They might have lice, they might need to be de-liced. We put them in fresh pajamas. We feed them breakfast the next morning, and we try to spend time finding the appropriate home for those kids. Instead of rush, it's 3 a.m, so-and-so always answers the phone, let's just give them to them. We put time, energy, and effort into making sure those placements are the first is always the best if you put a lot of thought into it, and so the children aren't moved around a lot. So just something to make you feel better is that we actually take a lot more time. We spend the night with the children, and we make sure that the placement we place them in truly will meet their needs.
Kudos to your workers.
Wanda?
Do you feel like you have enough employees to take care of our children?
To be honest with you,
That's probably a no, but-
I am starting to look to see. I am doing a reorg. I am trying to add more employees, and that's why last month I reported to you that in 2016 I had around 29. I think I took into, and then 2017 it was up to the 50s, and then 2018 I'm taking in 64. And just in January, I took in 14 children. And if you look at December, I took in 10. And it does worry me a little bit, because if you think about the increase in numbers, that's double within 2 years. So I'm doing all I can to look at my infrastructure, do a reorganization, try to add more workers. But that might be something I'm going to have to ask for when it's appropriate, is look at the funding that I have coming in and seeing how I'm going to manage that. But one thing that I can say I count on is we are actually rolled out 4E eligible. That is a pot of federal money that we're actually allowed that will help reimburse anything that has to do with foster care. So that will free up some of my income that I'm paying out of other things. I have 17 different budget streams that come into my department. So I will tell you, I'm looking into that, and it is a serious concern of mine, and I will do my absolute best to make sure that we always have plenty to care for our children.
Well, I know that you have employees that are working, they're on call and late nights, and you would just hope that that I guess the work would be spread out, that everyone could, you wouldn't have just a few people doing all that. And
Yes, I will say, I don't know, several months ago, I had some cranky workers, I think, that were sending emails. I switched staff around because we had a little bit of area here where I needed workers. And so sometimes my staff get cranky when I move them from, oh, I love this job, and I have to go over and go out in the middle of the night. I don't like that so much. So it's a fine line between having to move staff over to cover the area you're weak on and then just having to pull new people in. So I've experienced with that a little bit, and I've kind of learned when to move people and when just to hire somebody new. So it's like a balancing act. You know what I'm saying? Trying to make sure all bases are covered, but also not upsetting staff while you're trying to make sure children are cared for. So.
And I know the adoption process, I realize I've had, friends, family that have tried to adopt, and it is a long process, especially in the private sector. But, a few calls that I have received have been, it's just like if there could just be a little bit better communication or more frequent, just to let you know, like, you said that once a year they contact for recertificate. What did you say?
Yes, ma'am, that's what it's called.
And so that, that would help because, those people, they're anxious and they, and then, it seems, according to stats that we have many children, Cherokee children, that maybe could be available for adoption. And maybe that's not so true, but maybe that need foster homes. And, but that would, just, I know, you have a lot to do, but it would be, and they're just, it's not frustration, sometimes it's disappointment.
Sure.
The
The last time I checked, we only had 9 adoptive homes that only want to adopt. And so, again, getting the word out there, you would think we had tons. DHS won't even certify anyone for 0 to 3 age of children because they have so many, they don't want any more. Whereas Cherokee Nation, we're not like that. We will take anybody and everybody that wants to adopt and try to get you certified. So again, there's only 9 homes that are sitting there waiting for adoption. And again, that could have gone down. That was a couple months ago that I checked on those figures. But anyway.
Thank you. I know it's a big job. Thank you for your work.
Okay, David?
Thank you. What's
Yes,
the reason or the increase of taking the kids out?
It's drugs. We, of course, have the opioid increase in our area. A lot of it is meth, but I would say 75% of our cases are due to drug use, which leads to neglect. So it's just an increased use of drugs. The process still has the same checks and balances. I don't feel like we're overly removing. You have workers who contact a manager, who contact me, who contact the AG's office, who then contacts a tribal judge. Those are lots of people with some high experience and legal degrees that are making decisions on behalf of these kids. So drugs.
Drugs, interesting. Do we have absolute power in situations where taking kids, or can the judge override us if when we're going in and...
Whenever you're removing a child, you have to meet a burden that the child would sustain serious emotional or physical damage if remained in that home. That's the legal standard. So that's why it helps that several attorneys are looking at it along the way. But the judge actually does have the final say-so and has told us no on occasion.
Oh, really? Okay.
It does happen.
Okay.
But as Indian Child Welfare, we feel that it's ever on the line, we need to call in and let the Attorney General or the judge make the final decision because we always err on the side of caution. So there are times when we ask and we know it's on the line, but we'd rather be overly cautious than leave a child in an unsafe situation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Nikki.
You bet. Have a good evening.
CCO and Kevin Stretch.
Give them a go. Get you go, huh? You have my report, and I actually have my report this time. If there are any questions, I'll answer any questions if I can.
Any questions?
When's your next meeting?
Our next meeting, like at large meeting, or it's March 2nd in Dallas.
Yeah, Mary, go ahead.
Kevin, I know you know the job, but I have a question. If you have advance notice from a Cherokee at large group who wants more control over the menu in order to expedite things so that they can have more time with the leadership that's there and with the our national treasures and things that are there because they want more time and it's taken more time to serve them in the past, is there any way that we can help these at-large groups expedite their own menus? for example, I was just recently approached, they're wanting to serve like pork sandwiches, pulled pork sandwich, and that's all they're wanting, you know, some chips. They don't want any paper products because they want to supply that. But pulled pork, chips, pickles, and maybe a dessert and bottled water in order to get it through because it's taken so much time. When you're trying to get 400 people through a line where there's such a big variety, it takes time with all those choices. And they're merely wanting us to help accommodate them with their choices for what they want to rush through so that they can spend more time with the leadership and with the national treasures that are there to glean more information. Is that possible?
It is possible, and I wasn't aware in advance of the problem that you're talking about. And so hopefully we'll have better communication in the future and we can work on that. Because typically, for the 5 years I've been doing this, we have, you know, that A to Z scale.
Yes.
You bring something associated with your last name, and that has worked except for this one instance. And so, you know, we'll try to do what we can. We've worked, gone a lot of extra miles for this organization, and we'll try to make them happy next year.
Well, I hope we're always in a position to go all the extra miles for all our at-large organizations because this is our membership and we value them. And I just want to make sure that, because I think that after reading that approach, I think it could expedite a lot of things at these incredibly at-large, the larger groups at some of these events that we have. And I thought it was kind of actually a brilliant idea on how to expedite it so everybody gets through. I mean, we're getting ready to go to California in April where, my goodness, we were at one event where I think there were like 800 people in line at one time. So anything we can do to expedite, I think would be wonderful and something we ought to think about.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And David,
Kevin, is there a reason why we're not allowing the at-large communities to have access to their constituents in the area? Because they're wanting to grow their community, and the only time there's a lot of people there is when the chief comes and visits. But they're wanting to have a good attendance all the time, not just when the chief comes in. Is there a reason for that?
I don't know that there's an actual reason for anything. When we have at large events, we have sign-in sheets, and those sign-in sheets are 2 copies, and the local organization gets a copy of the sign-in sheet and address of every person that shows up to these events. So we may send out several thousand postcards and do phone blasts for each organization for this event. And so they have access to these addresses, but you know, it also is up to them to have the motivation to draw in their numbers as well.
The at-large communities, they do have access to these lists.
The people that sign in at their events, they have the access to those.
Could I have access to those as well, and Councilor Hatfield?
Yeah, if you put in a FOIA request, I think is the way we do it, that we can get a copy of that.
It's got to be a FOIA request?
I'm not sure. I'm new to this, so we could
That's what I
can
Madam
get you
Mayor,
access to
can I say
that.
something? We are very extremely protective of people's private information. We don't give out lists of our community organizations of their members. We have a public contact list that I take care of for our local organizations. There's also one for our at-large organizations. So we just don't give out information to anybody of people's names, addresses, phone numbers. We don't.
And that's Brad Wagner, by the way.
We give those to the organization, because it's their event, the big Chiefs event that you're talking about. We give those sign-in sheets to the organization. So I wouldn't see a problem with giving those to y'all, but y'all have access to everything that we have access to, is what I'm saying, as far as the organizations go. We could give the sign-in sheets.
And we've been approached in the past by counselors wanting lists of our mailing list, and we're unable to give that because of that reason. So
I don't know. You think if you're trying to grow your communities at large, you would do it for every meeting and not just when the chief came in.
I agree.
That's just my opinion on it.
And we spend several $1,000s for every single event when we send out postcards and make phone blasts. So,
Just an idea moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
appreciate it.
Well, it's been brought up before that, the expense of the at-large traveling, we've been criticized for that. And it is, it isn't cheap to travel, but that's probably the reason is like we've been criticized for, that sometimes for that one trip we make to California or wherever. It's just, I think the expense, if I think Mary and I would travel more, we put in our budget. I wouldn't mind, but I think the expense is the cost. I mean, the reason that we probably wouldn't.
Thank you, Counselor.
Back to Councilor Shaw's comment on this organization. We've given them extra money, and I explained to them that anytime we give, our budget is tight because of the mailings and because of the travel, and that we have a tight budget that every group knows we have to hit. And if we take that money and give it to someone else, then we have to cut costs with the other organizations when they have theirs. So it's a difficult thing to
And we'll be
keep in mind.
criticized for less food. I know that. That's going to happen already. It's going to happen.
And long lines,
Service
I agree. And the staff
Excuse me.
don't eat until everyone else eats, so we realize there are long lines.
Go ahead, Sean.
On those addresses, who has the access to the addresses?
We get, I have access to those addresses. I have access to the database.
Just
I don't look at names and addresses. I have access to the database, and I run say 150-mile radius from this organization, and then I collect the data from that, and I send it to the mailroom. And there are only 2 people that I know in the mailroom that have access to that. It doesn't go to anyone else. Just the 3 people that I know of. And IT, of course.
Kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to say this again, like Mary and Wanda and whoever's at large. I fully support you guys getting more travel money.
Thank you.
I mean, fully support it. I mean, there's things I disagree with about travel on a whole lot of things, but what I don't disagree on is the at-large counselors having to pull from their own pocket at times to get to their constituents. So if y'all ever draw up something, I'm going to be supporting you.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you.
I got one more comment. Is there a way that the community leader, the president, the chair of that organization could reach out to you guys and say, hey, we're having a meeting on this date. Can you send out a robocall and we'll pay for it? Like the actual community organization. Because the few at-large meetings I went to that were outside of the chief being there wasn't well attended. I mean, it's a handful of people. But those boards want a healthy, thriving Cherokee community. But it's just the people don't know about it. So is there a way you guys could set up access to those community leaders for you guys to do the legwork and then they'll pay the cost?
Yeah, we can work on
I
something
think-
for that.
Privacy
Yeah, I
issue.
think we've touched on enough on today, and we're out of time.
Okay.
About 20 minutes ago.
Okay?
Have you, I think we're all square on travel and all of that, so we appreciate you, Kevin.
Well,
Thank you,
I
guys.
don't.
No old business, no new. Announcement is next meeting is tentatively Monday, March 11th, 4 p.m.
Motion to adjourn.
Say-
Wait a minute, Dick, I want to say something. Shelley put the books for our end of the month meetings on everybody's desk, so those are your books, they're not going to be mailed.
Good.
We're
saving money, we're trying to cut back.
Just the regular.
All in favor, say aye.
That's got better money.